Hey, imagine that. I'm rolling up to the church in my minivan, and there's a camera crew right in the parking lot. Hey, I'm Jeremy from Parent Ministry, and I wanted to invite you to a webinar we're doing this month. Now, I know what you're thinking. You get these kind of invitations all the time, and why should you give me an hour of your time? Well, I want to try to explain to you in this video why it's going to be worth it. You see, I want to help you know that this hour you give me can make all the difference in your ability to make a huge difference in your ministry. But before we get started, I want to tell you quickly about my most embarrassing ministry moment. In fact, it happened well over 20 years ago when I just started in ministry. In fact, this was my first church, my first trip away with my first group of students ever. Now, I had known enough to get parent permission forms signed, but we didn't really do much else. We just loaded the bus and we went 3 hours away to this big ice skating rink and mall, and I'll tell you, we had a blast. We had so much fun, but we were tired. We rolled back in that night around midnight. Now, when we got to the parking lot, that's the part of the story where it gets a little bit crazy, because the parking lot was filled with police cars with all of their lights on. My heart sunk to my toes, and I was like, what is going on? So I got out and I was quickly informed that one of the teenage girls that joined the trip joined without her parents' permission. She was mad at her parents, wanted to get away and run away, so she forged their name and came and jumped on my bus, and without realizing it, I kidnapped a girl and took her 3 hours away from home without her parents' permission. And they had filed a missing persons report. Oh my goodness. And they were sitting here questioning me. I couldn't have been more scared. And here's what I learned that night. I learned that you can't ignore parents. It can't be just about students, and it can't be just about having a whole bunch of fun and trying to really pour into students only. If we're gonna pull this off, we have to invite parents. And it's not just getting their permission, which you should totally do. It's about inviting their influence. See, parents are the greatest spiritual influence in the lives of the kids we serve. Whether we're children's ministers or youth ministers, it really doesn't matter. Whether we're volunteer or paid, doesn't matter. We show up to churches like this every day, and we want to make a difference in the lives of students. But if we really want to make a difference, then we need to make an investment and an impact in the people who influence them the most. Here's a newsflash. Those people are not us as ministers. Sometimes I thought as a young minister that I was the one that was the biggest spiritual influence in the lives of my kids. I've learned that that's not true. It is their parents. And so that means if we're going to make a long-term impact, we have to influence the influencers. So this webinar that we're going to do, I want to talk to you a little bit more about, first of all, why does parent ministry matter? Why should you take a little bit more time, effort, energy, and resources and put it into parents? Why should that matter? Why should you do fewer pizza parties and more parent ministry? What's the reason? We're gonna dive into that more. And when we dive into it, I'm going to address one of those scary stats that we've had floating around the ministry community for a while. In fact, one of the most respected people who put out this stat is the Barna Institute from George Barna. In 2016, they said that 50% of the teenagers and young adults who will graduate from our ministries will stop regularly attending church. That means half of what we're trying to accomplish in our ministries is going to just fall away after graduation. Now, I'm not a huge fan of stats, but that one is a little bit scary to me. I'm like, wait a second. All of this work we're doing, all of this investment, we're putting our hearts and souls into this, and it's not going to last, it's not going to stick. Well, I think we need to learn as a ministry community how to make a long-term investment, and I think that's the answer to this scary stat. So I want to talk to you very specifically about how parent ministry can be that answer to help stop the madness when it comes to the scary stat that we've all seen and heard. We're not just gonna tell you why you need to do parent ministry or what you need to do, because you know what? A lot of us have heard a lot of that. I wanna talk about how to do it. In fact, not just over the next year, I'm gonna talk about how you start this week. I'm gonna give you some very specific things that you can do to start your parent ministry. I'm also going, in the webinar, if you show up live, you're going to get the actual resources that you'll need. I'll give you the free resources. Whether you become a member of Parent Ministry or not, that's not the concern. The concern here is this, that you have what you need to get started. That's a gift I'd like to give you. Please allow us, by attending this webinar, to help you learn how to maximize the influence of parents in your ministry.